Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall. Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall,
host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey there, how you doing? Thanks a lot for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. Always appreciate your 5-star reviews. If you get the time, I know it's an inconvenience, but if you ever get the time to scroll down to the bottom of the menu of shows at Apple Podcasts and leave a written review and a 5-star review, that helps advance our goals and our show more than anything else. Or that 5-star review at Spotify. Grateful that you listen. I should also remind you that if you ever want to watch the video version of this for any reason, when YouTube allows it, we're on YouTube. And also you can check out the show on Rumble every day because that's where free speech lives all the time. So there is a video version of this for those of you that only listen to the audio, rumble.com and YouTube. It's all linked at chrisstigall.com. There's also a link and another video to watch about our title sponsor, John Ruhlman, and usmedicalplan.com, the guy that makes health insurance as affordable as he can possibly find it for you, but still covers you well. You know, the thing is, people ask me all the time, Chris, if I call John and he gives me a cheaper rate, does that mean I'm going to get cut rate insurance? No, not at all. John will shop with 80 different private health insurers that he has access to. He'll run the numbers on your current insurance plan. Maybe you've already got the best insurance out there for you. It could be. He'll tell you if so. But the goal is to, number one, find you a more affordable price tag on insurance. If it exists, it's probably like 30 to 60% cheaper out there. That's generally what he saves people. I mean, I know people that have saved thousands of dollars by making this phone call for their families or themselves as individuals. You know, if you're a senior and you need that supplemental insurance plan to go along with your Medicare, he can cover it. If you're a small business owner and you want to extend insurance benefits to your employees, but it's breaking your budget to afford those premiums to cover your employees, let John go do some work for you. And the great thing is he's an advocate. If you ever have any kind of issues with a doctor's bill or a hospital bill and your insurance, John and his team advocate for you. In fact, they'll jump in right now if you're in the middle embroiled in some kind of thing to help you transition into a new program and do your battles for you. That's what I really love. It's one-stop shopping in a area of our lives that's often very bureaucratic and time-consuming. John tries to make this as easy, affordable, and trouble and worry-free as he can. usmedicalplan.com, usmedicalplan.com, or 877-410-4321. Prosecutors have agreed to a plea deal with the masterminds of the 9/11 attacks. The convening authority for military commissions entered into pretrial agreements with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and two others. The terms and conditions of the plea deals not disclosed, but the terror suspects will be spared the death penalty. 3 relatives of 9/11 victims were told by the Office of Military Commissions yesterday. Should there be any other story this morning leading the news but that one? Where is Cacklebritches on this story? Did this come up? Will this be asked at the National Association of Black Journalists when she appears? Because apparently now that's the news. You see, Trump has goaded her to come out of her hole, and she's now going to appear before the Association of Black Journalists. I wonder when she goes, will they ask her if she agrees with her administration's decision to spare the 9/11 masterminds the death penalty? Wouldn't that be a great question to ask Cacklebritches? If anybody actually believed in asking her questions, real questions? No, we won't do that, though, will we? No, we're going to spend all our time talking about her racial identity. And by the way, you can talk about racial politics as long as you're on the left. You can segregate yourselves into groups. You can create groups called white guys for Trump or white women for Trump. You can do that all day long. You can talk about black. You can talk about white. You can talk about Indian. You can segregate and balkanize yourselves on the left because that's what they do. But the second you question their street cred on it, oh no, them's fighting words. Folks, I got to tell you something right now. And some of you are just going to need me to grab you by the scruff of the neck. You panty wastes who were out there panicking about Trump yesterday at this National Association of Black Journalists event, Is this your first rodeo? Are you new here? What the hell is the matter with you? Oh, Chris, I wish he hadn't done this. Oh, Chris, I wish he hadn't said that. Oh, God, there we go. We've lost it now. Ladies and gentlemen, you either believe one of two things about people of color in this country. You either believe there is no shot, no prayer that Republicans can win them over, or you believe that people like Donald Trump are making inroads and people like Kamala Harris are complete frauds and phonies, and they've been seen for what they are years ago. And I believe the latter. You know, I'm getting really sick and tired of our side just because they put a little lipstick on the proverbial political pig. We all go along with it. And we all, she's holding, they've all got signs that say Kamala, and she's got big rock stars and rap stars at her concerts, and she's filling arenas. And they've put a glossy new commercial together, and she gives big platitudinal speeches like Obama. Hey, God, and then Trump said what he said. Did you hear what he said? Oh, God, we're cooked, Chris. Grow up. The man has been shot. They've attempted to bankrupt him. They've attempted to raid his home. They've attempted to kill him. They've attempted to jail him, and they're not done with that yet. And you're upset, you're worried because he questioned whether this woman on any given day knows what her ethnicity is. To the faces of the Associated Black Journalists in Chicago. I mean, grow up. Get a little spine. Understand the era in which we live. Stop with this belly aching. And by the way, can you just understand for once that we're in a 24-hour news cycle that will literally forget this story by noon, 1 o'clock, certainly by this evening? This story will not be a story anymore, and they'll move on to the next outrageous, controversial thing. None of these stories ever have shelf life. None of them have new legs. It's just one made-up, manufactured, silly controversy to the next to keep people from talking about this woman's record. No one has asked her a single question. She's been the presumptive nominee of the Democrat Party for 11 days, and she hasn't had to answer one question from media. They are prepared to do to this woman exactly what they did to the husk. Just keep her out of sight. Let her show up and deliver these Obama-authored speeches. I mean, I tell you what, this was textbook Obama last night, her speech, which I'm not going to play, but her speech last night was full of platitudes about how she wants to be a uniter and how our side is mean. Those of you who are harumphers know exactly what I'm talking about. I wrote this yesterday, what her playbook is, that this is a blend of two films. Basically, this is the girl power movement, the Barbie thing. They're going to play into that all day long. Women. And look, if we lose women to that, I'm not sure you ever overcome it. I don't think there's any way to overcome it except you try to turn out men. Now, women in this audience and millions of conservative women and Trump voting women, of course, I'm not talking about you, but everybody is terrified of women on our side. And I get it. They're going to play the abortion card. They're going to do it well and to great effect. And I don't have any counsel for you. There is no way to talk women who are motivated by infanticide out of being motivated by infanticide. There's no way to talk a woman out of that. All right. So I just say let it go. The question before us really is, will men show up? There are hundreds of thousands of registered gun owners, for instance, in Pennsylvania alone, who have not voted and don't participate and aren't registered to vote. Are they going to show up? Do they realize their gun rights are under threat? I don't know. I can't answer these questions, but I do know they're out there. Black men. Black men did not like Cackle Britches before. Do you think they like her anymore now? Do you think somehow that black men have warmed to her and forgotten that she built her career politically out of jailing them for minor low-level drug offenses in California? Do you think that they've forgotten that? Do you think black men think this woman's authentic? She was the dead last. She had to drop out before a single vote was cast in the Democrat primary. This is a completely fictitious candidacy. This was made up from the jump. It was an arranged political marriage with Joe Biden. She was never a real thing. For 3.5 years, they have been waiting to craft this day, and they're doing it. Okay, to great effect. And we knew the media would help them do it. And so, of course, when Trump says, I'll go anytime, anywhere, you want to invite me to a thing, I'll show up to the thing. And then we find out Cacklebritches isn't going to show up to the National Association of Black Journalists event. She's got better things to do. She's going to speak to a black sorority instead. I see. So she can go speak directly to groups under the auspices of being black. Trump then, as a white guy, goes, he takes the invitation from the National Association of Black Journalists to go answer their questions, which are extraordinarily hostile right out of the gate. They wanted him there just to smack him around. They didn't want him there to actually answer questions that would impact black Americans. They just wanted to beat him up and bully him. And of course, Trump doesn't take that. Coolly, calmly, collectedly, he slices and dices this hostile ABC journalist. And I'll get into the clips in a minute. But he does it like a surgeon, and he begins to question, why the hell isn't she here? And furthermore, what makes her black? Why is she black all of a sudden? I thought she was Indian. And if you go back and you look at her political career in California, that's in fact the way they have portrayed her. First Indian, first Indian, first Indian. She's done interviews with Mindy Kaling. If you know who she is, she's an Indian actress. They're in the kitchen, and there's a whole segment about how I'm an Indian. I was raised on Indian food. You look just like my family. Indian, 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 until she's not. Now she's black. Well, Chris, you can be both Indian and black. Oh, well, isn't that nice for you? So you get to culturally appropriate for whatever group you're in front of? Look, I'm not black, but I'll say this. I just bet you, if you went out on the street and you surveyed black folks today and asked them, does that wash with you? Does somebody just get to show up and say, I'm black now, after calling themselves Indian for years? Do you buy it? Does that work? Do you believe she represents the, quote, black experience? Here's the little truth about yesterday that nobody's telling you, and I think is actually true. Now, you may say this is wishful thinking or Pollyanna stuff. If you actually watched Trump's conversation with this hostile black journalist in front of this live audience, it's all in the ear of the beholder. Because to me, what I heard was a black audience that was laughing along with Trump. Now, if you're a leftist, you hear that they're laughing at Trump. You ever watched, for frame of reference, have you ever watched Showtime at the Apollo? Did you ever watch that show? I always remember it came on after Saturday Night Live. Culturally, I knew it was never anything that totally made sense to me. It was a, Showtime at the Apollo Theater, a historically black theater in New York. And the deal is entertainers would come out and they would perform in front of this raucous audience, mostly black audience. And the performers would either, you know what it was really? What it was like America's Got Talent without judges. This was back in the 80s and 90s, if you were around and you heard that show. And one of the things that I remember so vividly about that was a mostly black audience jumping up and down with enthusiasm, laughing and hooting. A comic would come out, sometimes white, sometimes whatever. And depending on whether their jokes would, like when they would walk out, I remember the mostly black audience immediately kind of making judgment on how this person looked. So like if a impish-looking white guy walked out on the stage, you'd start to hear tittering and giggling and kind of murmuring in the crowd. Like you could tell that this majority black audience was getting ready to totally reject this weakling little white comic. And then he'd come out with maybe some kind of dialect, or he'd start dropping some big jokes on this crowd, and all of a sudden, on a dime, this mostly black audience would turn and they'd start roaring with laughter, and they'd stand and they'd applaud him, and you'd be at home riveted because you thought this mostly black audience was about to eat this guy alive, and instead he has them eating out of the palm of his hand. And in other instances, you would see black comics or black singers or whatever come out and start to sing, and they would just lay an egg, and the majority black audience would boo them and jeer them right off the stage. I remember as a young kid watching it with fascination. So, as that a frame of reference, I listened to this audience responding to Donald Trump yesterday. He was not getting boos and jeers, maybe a few here and there, but when he started very specifically to question this woman's heritage, and the fact that she's been Indian all along and then all of a sudden she became black, all the media, instead of actually playing for you the clips, instead of actually showing you what happened on X and other social media platforms, all they did yesterday was write, he's cooked, he's done. What a horrible moment for Donald Trump. Ha, ha, ha. Did you hear the audience laughing at him? Oh, Lord, he stepped in it now. This was the worst performance for Trump ever. They all wrote in unison yesterday. But none of them actually played the clip. None of them actually showed the clip. They just told their lemmings it was bad for Trump. But if you actually watched it and listened, I think you come away with a different impression. And nobody in that room was actually asked about it. Harris Faulkner was one of the journalists on stage, one of the black journalists on stage, and she said after the event on Fox that a lot of young journalists she saw in the room actually really enjoyed Trump and enjoyed having him there and enjoyed listening to him. Enjoyed him. Now, I want to remind you before we get into this is the party of racial identity politics. And so what Trump effectively did yesterday was fly right into it and say, oh, no, you going to play racial politics? Okay, I call bull excrement on your racial politics. She's a fraud. From one day to the next, we don't even know what the hell she is. Oh, Stigall, oh, this isn't a winner. You can't do this. I know what this is. This is like Obama all over again. No, wrong. This is not like Obama all over again. I've already explained to you why it's different. Number one, we know who Donald Trump is. And again, I say, he's been shot at. They've attempted to bankrupt him. They've raided his home. They're going to still try to jail him. They've impeached him twice. And he's still standing. And he is still the candidate for the Republican Party. And he's still as popular and on track to get as many votes as he did before. Maybe more. We don't know. We'll see. What do we know about Obama? We knew nothing about him except his speechifying. And that's the way they kept it. Nobody knew anything about him. He came from an Illinois State Senate office. He was United States Senator for 2 seconds, and then all of a sudden he becomes president. History. They wove a narrative. They can't do this with her. They're going to try. They're going to try to make everybody forget that she's been vice president for 3.5 years. They're going to try to make everybody forget that we're still pretending Joe Biden is president. They're going to try to make everybody forget that there's real world news happening around us. The world's in decay. The country's in despair. Crime is on the rise. The Middle East is probably going to erupt into a full-blown war. We just excused, pardoned, freed effectively from death 3 of the masterminds that slaughtered 3,000 of our American citizens yesterday. Inflation skyrocketing, and everybody knows it. And this phony, this fraud politician from California, who Democrats couldn't stand, black men in particular couldn't stand, who's called herself Indian all along, shows up all of a sudden and she's Rosa Parks. What? And so Trump goes to the National Association of Black Journalists and calls bull excrement. And there were a lot of people, whether you choose to hear it this way or not, that's fine. But as far as I'm concerned, there were a lot of people in that audience laughing along with him saying, he's right, bull excrement. Now, we won't know. We'll never know. It's impossible to know when this election's over what the vote actually looks like and where black voters go. And as far as a percentage of the constituency, they're still not going to be the ones that tip this election one way or the other. Blacks. But we know this, if black men and many black folks either sit it out or Trump manages to shave off more black male support, and I think he's about to, I think young men in this country and young black men in this country are going to go more for Trump than we've ever seen before, and I think that scares the excrement out of Democrats. That's what I think. Do I think women and black women are probably uniformly on the left going to go for Trump and not even consider it? Probably. I don't think there's anything you can do about it. I don't think there's any winning these people over. If you're a lunatic, rabid Trump hater, you're going to hate him. Nobody's mind is going to be changed about Donald Trump. The question is, are we going to prosecute this fraud politician? This fraud, this phony who has never, ever, ever been authentic, not once in her political career. And black folks in particular know it. And so Trump went right at the heart of it. And I think it was great that he did. And what the hell are you so afraid of out there? Oh, God, Chris, I don't know. Oh, no, we're never going to win if you do this and get distracted with it. Not distracted with it. It's a moment. It's a moment in time. These things are drops in the political bucket. This will be over tomorrow. Oh, I don't know about this. This is a bad strategy. It's not a strategy. It's Trump in the moment. And Trump in the moment is truthful. And if you don't like it, so be it, but that's who he is. And a lot of people do like it. You know, I remind you that there are actually, and I didn't get to this yesterday, The Daily Show has an Asian comic, and I don't know his name, and forgive me, but he's hosting The Daily Show this week. And he did a whole bit yesterday at The Daily Show desk, or 2 days ago, about this white dudes for Harris. And I wanted you to hear it.
Running mates, actors, labor leaders among the stars were Mark Hamill, Josh Groban, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Actor Jeff Bridges throwing in his star power.
I qualify, man. I'm white, I'm a dude, and I'm for Harris. I'm so excited. A woman president, man. How exciting.
I mean, it is cool that they got Jeff Bridges, but if anyone was waiting to see who the Big Lebowski endorses, I don't think that's the group that's going to remember to vote. But 150,000 white dudes joined the Zoom because nothing says I will do anything for this candidate like clicking on the Zoom link from your toilet. The white dudes did raise a lot of money, although the Zoom went off the rails when someone asked if anyone had a favorite Bob Dylan album. And I personally am glad they found a way to make segregation progressive, but I'm just saying, historically, it's not great when white people develop racial awareness, okay?
That was an Asian comic hosting The Daily Show, pointing out it's probably not good for us when a bunch of whites get together and start celebrating their identity. It's exactly right. That was segregation. I mean, I got this story in front of me from you. I didn't spend a ton of time on it, but white women and white dudes pledge their allegiance to Kamala Harris. Talk about weird, from USA Today's opinion section. Imagine for a minute that supporters of former President Donald Trump advertised fundraising calls that said only for white women and white men. The uproar among the left and news media would be immediate. Accusations of racism and sexism would surely follow. Yet, if Democrats do it, it's okay. In recent days, that's exactly what's happened. Nearly 200,000 white women hopped on a 2-hour Zoom call and reportedly raised $11 million for cackle britches. And then, not to be outdone, a bunch of self-proclaimed white dudes joined a call on Monday to do the same thing. Other groups have held similar calls, including Win with Black Women, Latinas for Harris, Win with Black Men, Black, Gay, and Queer Men for Harris. Harris, in the honeymoon period of her newfound candidacy, now that Joe Biden's been booted, has been taking to calling Trump and his J.D. Vance running mate weird. I would counter that these segregated fundraisers are just plain weird, but they also speak to the Democrat Party's obsession with race and gender. So Trump went right at that yesterday. That's exactly right. He called it out. All right, so if for some reason you missed this, here's how it unfolded yesterday. The woman asking this question, this extraordinarily hostile, snotty lady who decided she was going to try to earn her wings because she knew a lot of people were going to be paying attention to this. Supposedly, people were livid Trump was even invited. So ABC's Rachel Scott had the first opening questions for Trump. Trump says that they were a half hour late to getting started. And he said it was because they were having technical difficulties. The audience was starting to get restless. Why the hell aren't they coming out? Trump says, I was here on time. They weren't ready. So Rachel Scott auditioning, this is her Caitlin Collins on CNN moment. So she comes out swinging. Listen.
You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner, a first question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that
these people are not jeering.
In good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country. including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. Done so much, and and I say this, historically black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke, and I saved them, and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late, just so we understand. I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working, or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love if you can answer the question on your rhetoric and why you believe that black voters should trust you with another 4 years.
I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act?
And for you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work, in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
Let me just say, that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is balls of steel. What you just heard right there, calm, resolve, steeled. We just saw how Donald Trump responds to bullies. This is how it's done. Imagine him sitting in the room with foreign dictators. Do you understand now why nobody invaded anyone or tried to slaughter their neighbors while Donald Trump was president? Maybe that's why right there. Maybe you just heard it. No cowering, no pandering, no evading. Straight at this woman trying to bully and intimidate and harass. And where is she? Where is this coward? Cacklebritches. He's right to call her out. This audience was not booing him. In many cases, they were laughing with him, in my view. I think he had them eating out of the palm of his hand. Harris Faulkner said many of them enjoyed him. Most of the left is not playing that audio for you. They're just telling you what a horrible day it was for him yesterday. But here's the one that has a lot of people, some of you in this audience even, very nervous and wringing your hands when they got into Kamala Harris's heritage. Listen, number 93.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a definition then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question, a very direct question.
Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that she is...
I think somebody should look into that, too, when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
Folks, they're not laughing at her. They're not booing him. When you hear laughter, they're not jeering. If this audience objected to what he was saying, you'd know it. Did that sound like a massive audience objecting to his premise? It didn't to me. I heard them laughing. All of a sudden, she became black. I saw more than a few journalists write the sentence, Trump falsely questions Kamala Harris's heritage. How do you falsely question something exactly? It's one of the more stupid headlines I've ever read. Falsely questions. You can't even put those two words together in a sentence. It doesn't make sense. You can question anything you want. There's no such thing as falsely questioning. first of all. Black people know this woman's a phony, ladies and gentlemen, and I know a lot of guilty whites out there get very nervous talking about race, but black folks know when they're being pandered to. Black folks know when they're being lied to. It's why black people rejected this woman when she ran as a Democrat and had to drop out before a single vote was cast. Black folks didn't believe her then, and I would maintain black folks don't believe her now. And I think Trump absolutely made that point, called her out, and he got laughs because he pointed it out. And of course, there's ample headlines and ample tape to prove that this woman did not identify as black. She did not play to this identity politics until she decided she wanted to run artificially as America's first black female president. And they're going to try to completely give the movie showbiz treatment to her the way they did to Barack Obama. Again, but except the difference is she has a record and people know who she is. As for Trump, he gets back on a plane, leaves Chicago, goes to Harrisburg, and brings the house down last night. Absolutely brings the house down. Listen to some of this last night. Number 88. Trump's got a packed arena in Harrisburg, and he's rolling with this.
Because everything about Kamala Harris rollout, it's phony and it's fake. Did you see when President Obama and Michelle called? Did you see? Hello? Hello? Yes. Yes. Who is this? Oh, this is Michelle and Barack. Oh. So surprised to hear. They got 4 cameras in front. Oh, I'm so surprised. It's on speakerphone. Listen, we just want to congratulate you on destroying Joe Biden. I mean, on winning the... Hey, is Joe Biden gonna... Was that the phoniest phone call I've ever seen?
And he called her fake repeatedly, and he should, because she is fake. Larry Kudlow last night. This was his summary on Kudlow's show on Fox Business about yesterday's event in Chicago with the black journalist.
Donald Trump went into the lion's den in front of the Black Journalist Convention and came out a big winner. And that's the subject of the riff.
I need one of those.
Donald Trump went into the lion's den today with a sit-down in front of the National Association of Black Journalists in Chicago. Kamala Harris was also invited, but she was a no-show. No doubt about it, however, Mr. Trump has gotten his swag back. One of the questioners was ABC reporter Rachel Scott, who opened the Q&A by attacking Trump, and he just fought back, telling her how rude she was after all. He showed up on time. They started 35 minutes late because their audio equipment failed. And after that, he thought Kamala would be there, and she wasn't. And he then called the event false advertising.
That's right. A guy called Tariq Nasheed on X. He has 400,000 followers. And he said, I'm a lifetime member of the National Association of Black Journalists. But they sat up here and got cooked by Trump today by trying to act like shills for Democrats. If they would have been more objective, their grilling would not have backfired on them. It's exactly right. As for J.D. Vance, he was asked about this yesterday, and this is pitch perfect J.D. Vance. You ready for this? I, of course, have heard about President's comments around the world. I frankly just think it's hysterical how much the media is overreacting to it. The president, which is one of the good things about him, the president doesn't do scripted BS stuff. He actually goes into hostile audiences. He answers tough questions. He pushes back against them, but he actually answers them. And how nice it is to have an American leader who's not afraid to go into hostile places and actually answer some tough questions. So what he said, I thought, was hysterical. I think he pointed out the fundamental chameleon-like nature of Kamala Harris. I mean, you guys saw yesterday, she's in Georgia, and she put on a Southern accent for a Georgia audience. We didn't play any of that yesterday, but she did the Hillary thing. I ain't no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from. These phony liberal women, every time they go south, they think they got to put one on. She's a San Francisco leftist. She goes down to Georgia. Hey, yo, hey. Now she's suddenly a Georgia peach. Shut up. J.D. Vance, of course, calling her out. You guys saw yesterday. She was in Georgia. She put on a Southern accent for a Georgia audience. She grew up in Vancouver, he said. What the hell is going on here? She's not who she pretends to be. She's flip-flopped on every issue. She's fake. She's phony. And I think our whole campaign is going to have a very fun time pointing that out. And it sounds like the president kicked us off in stride today. Yes, J.D. Vance. This woman is a fake. She is a fraud. And they're going to try a basement strategy with her, and they're going to try to paint her up as something she's not, and they're going to try to avoid answering a single real question for the next 3 months. And so Donald Trump goes wherever he has to and calls her out and calls her a phony. And people wring their hand. Oh, God. Oh, Chris. Oh, no. He's been shot at. They've attempted to bankrupt him and jail him. They've raided his home and impeached him twice. Would you quit with this Mitt Romney, John McCain, George W. Bush thinking about the way we communicate in 2024? Please. Excellence in dentistry. That's what you're going to get at Williamsburg Dental. My friend Bob Spinato is back on the phone. He's in Broomall, just off the Blue Route. And with 2 new associates, now you can expand and offer more hours, maybe evening hours, possibly weekends, Bob.
Yeah, one of the things that I told them from early on when they started with me was the value of not only their own time, but other people's times. And they run on a similar schedule that I do. If you've got a 1 o'clock appointment, you're in their chair at 1 o'clock. And it's something that across the board at Williamsburg Dental, we really pride ourselves on, whether it's an appointment with the hygienist or whether it's an appointment with one of our doctors. The other thing is we now have some expanded hours in the evenings, and even there's some discussion about opening again on some Saturdays for services.
Yeah, so, but not you. You're fishing. You're not kidding anybody. It's not you going to be working on Saturday. Come on,
well, I'm in my 33rd year, and it shouldn't be the young guns.
That's so right. You've earned it. You've earned it.
I feel like I have. Thank you.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. So she gets to culturally appropriate all she wants. Is that it? That's what she's doing. She's Rachel Dolezal. She's the white woman who painted her skin brown and pretended to be black. That's who Kamala Harris is. She's a straight, stone-cold phony. And I don't have any problem looking black straight in the face and going, you believe her? This CNN literally did this piece profiling her when she was from California as a politician. And it's worth remembering that this woman, this was her identity.
My mother, who raised me and my sister, was a proud woman. She was a brown woman. She was a woman with a heavy accent.
And her mother, Shamla Gopalan, was also the biggest influence in Kamala Harris's life.
The answer is absolutely yes, Joe.
After the big announcement, Harris's sister wrote in a Twitter post, "You can't know who Kamala Harris is without knowing who our mother was." In 1958, a precocious 19-year-old Indian, Gopalan traveled thousands of miles from her home and family to pursue a doctorate in nutrition and endocrinology in America. She soon became an active civil rights crusader while studying at UC Berkeley.
But once she went there, she almost felt free. And she took...
This entire segment, it goes on for another 2 minutes. It's all about her rich Indian heritage, which is fine. Own it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's beautiful. They say Kamala is Indian. I didn't know this. They say Kamala is Indian for lotus flower. Did you know that? I didn't. Okay. Own it. Like, why now all of a sudden is it a bad thing, by the way? What the hell? I am not Indian. I am black. She's phony. The point of this exercise is not to parse race or anything else. The point is to highlight this woman is a chameleon. She is a fraud. And whether you're Indian or whether you're black or whether you're white or whatever you are, however you identify, and if you identify as such proudly, she's going to try to convince you she's that too. Hey y'all, I'm from Georgia. Born in Vancouver. She's black when she goes to the South. She's Indian when she cooks with Mindy Kaling for a Netflix special. She's a woman when she needs to be a woman. How dare you bring up her being a woman when she's just as tough as any man? You see the game they play? She's a delicate flower when you bring it up. You can't be mean to the girl, but then all of a sudden on the other side, it's girl power. She's tough as nails and she's not afraid of any man. Come and get me, Donald. But then if he says anything, oh, how dare you? Outrageous. You're falsely questioning her. Now, Trump goes right at all this, calls bull excrement on all of it. So do I, and so should you. You know, the fact of the matter is, people who support her, air quotes, don't even know why. Jesse Waters, over there on Fox, sent one of his guys into this Kamala Harris rally in Atlanta. Incidentally, did you see some of the footage that was released from this big, raucous, packed to the rafters Kamala Harris coming out event in Atlanta this week, featuring Megan the Stallion? And as we learn, Megan the Stallion, she's a 20-something-year-old rapper, very, very popular, and it's abundantly clear that she came out as the headliner of this rally to get people in the door. And many people did go to see this Megan the Stallion. And after she was done singing and Kamala started speaking, there's video out there of people getting up and heading for the exits as fast as they can. They came for the free concert. They didn't want to sit around and listen to her cackle britches, lie to their faces, and put on a fake Southern accent. And so when this thing was over, Jesse Waters sent in an undercover reporter and decided to just simply ask a very basic question of these Kamala Harris voters and supporters. What has she done exactly? Why do you support her? Here were their answers.
Attorney General in California, and she was the senator from California. I really don't know much of what she did.
I'm not sure I know enough about her accomplishments to answer that question.
The way that she carries herself.
She was Attorney General of her state. She moved up to becoming, the Vice President of the United States. So she has definitely made her stamp in history of being the first African-American female Vice President, and soon to be first Vice President as a woman of color.
Okay. This country wants substance and solutions, not sugary identity politics.
That's right. You know, even guys like Michael Cernovich, I think is how you say it, Cernovich, I don't know. He's got a huge following on Twitter himself. I think a conservative. He's got like 1 million followers, and he doesn't particularly like Trump or Trump's campaign, to be clear. But he said this: Trump went into a room of black journalists and others and treated them the same way he does everyone else. No pandering, no DEI treatment, just as equals. And you can hear the audience laugh. They didn't boo like they did Mitt Romney under similar circumstances. That's exactly right. I couldn't agree more. That's exactly what I heard. He went on to make the point a little later that I don't believe in chasing moderates, which is fake and made up. But I watched so many claim Trump needed to appeal to these people and then jump headfirst into racially charged territory. Absolute lemmings. He said this was a win for Trump yesterday. I agree. There are a lot of black journalists, for what it's worth, on X today saying that that was a disastrous day for black journalists. A guy called Jamal Green on Twitter says, today was a bad day for black journalists in our country, period. The outrage from journalists of being able to grill a presidential candidate, then they chose women purposely to try to create a moment to embarrass him. And then they didn't ask good questions. We have to do better and get out your damn feelings. Handle the business for the people. I'm sorry, folks, but if she's going to hide and they're going to do another basement campaign, you're going to continue. If you're one of these people that are afraid of her and afraid of this and afraid of their Hollywood production, you're going to be a nervous wreck for the next 3 months every time Trump goes anywhere and opens his mouth. But this shouldn't be our first rodeo. This shouldn't surprise anybody. Trump's going to go where he's invited. Trump's going to say what Trump says. Trump's going to call people out to their faces. He's not going to apologize. He's not going to act differently for different audiences. He's not a blow-dried, manicured, stuffed shirt, here's a canned answer guy. He said, I accepted your invitation here. I came in goodwill. You started hurling hostile questions at me right out of the gate. The woman I'm running against now, who 11 days ago or whatever, I didn't even know she was running, and now I'm running against her, and she's decided she's not even going to show up. I respect you enough to show up. She won't even show up. Then you tell me we can't do Zoom. You've either got to physically be here or no dice. You tell her now she can Zoom in. Well, then I guess they changed their minds, and now she's going to come at a later date, and they're going to reconvene or some such thing. Most importantly, for the first time in 11 days, guess who we're talking about again, by the way? Donald Trump. And for the first time in 11 days, guess who's on defense? Guess who's now trying to explain herself? Guess whose campaign is flailing and spitting and screaming and outraged? It's her. And without missing a beat, he went into a packed arena in Harrisburg and had them laughing and roaring and having a great time last night. She's hiding. She's a coward. She's a phony coward. Now, the question is, can the Trump campaign define her? Will they spend the money defining her? That remains to be seen. I don't know. Look, and I want to be clear with you here, do I think this election is won on this issue? Of course I don't. And I get a little tired of people saying, this is a terrible strategy. This isn't a strategy. It's a moment in time. It's a day. It's not a strategy. It's every day Trump opens his mouth. Trump says what he wants to say. The media makes a thing out of it. And then so many of us wring our hands and go, oh, God, oh, why are they doing this? This is a terrible decision. It's Trump. It's who he is. And it will move on. There will be another thing and another thing and another thing. There will be several dozen more of these outrageous moments in the next 3 months. And you will have forgotten this one. The man was nearly killed not but a few days ago. And now we're talking about how dare he question she's Indian or black? Are you serious? Just take a breath. We got a whole nother quarter of ball to play here, okay? And this woman has yet to answer a single question. And the country and the world continues to boil over. And I still have faith that the American public realizes she's responsible for it. She has covered up the infirmity of this old husk pretending to be president. She's overseen the destruction. She's a complete fraud. And I still maintain there's more than enough time for not only Donald Trump to define her, but much of this country sees her for what she is. And polls show they're neck and neck or whatever. We'll see. But Selena Zito said she feels this is very similar to what Hillary Clinton put up. And I tend to agree with her. We'll see if people show up and vote for her enthusiastically or not. Maybe they do. I don't know. I make no predictions. But I have a very, very funny feeling there are a lot of people that just won't tell you, shy Trump voters as they're called, particularly now, who know she's a fraud and know we were better off under him, but don't dare say in polite company now they're going to vote for the felon and the hillbilly. I'm prepared to be very pleasantly surprised this fall. No, that's not a strategy. No, that's not a prediction. That's just a guess. But there's more than enough time to define who she is. And I think much of this country already knows who she is. And all of this country already knows who Donald Trump is. These are the cards we're dealt, folks. No reason to cry over them. Let's man up. Let's woman up. Let's play ball. Well, if you haven't noticed, inflation is still at a 40-year high. The stock market looks more uncertain than ever. And a new central bank digital currency is on the way. That could be the government's ultimate surveillance tool against Americans. It seems like the government is playing games with your savings and retirement. And so what do you do to help protect yourself? Did you know you can put physical gold and silver into an IRA or a 401k with zero taxes or penalties? Millions of Americans are doing it right now. And you should consider it too if you want to preserve and protect your wealth. And there's only one company that I would recommend to you to do that. It's a company called Preserve Gold. Now, they'll go over all your options and make the process of acquiring precious metals easy and simple. So if you're looking to help protect your retirement with a trustworthy company, request your free investment guide from the experts at Preserve Gold. Preserve Gold is accredited with the Better Business Bureau. They have hundreds of 5-star reviews, so you know you're in good hands. Just text Stigall to 50505. Again, text Stigall, my last name, Stigall, to 50505 and get an exclusive offer for everybody that's tuned into this show. You're going to get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualifying purchase or a retirement account rollover. Yeah, that's huge. Don't wait. Text my name, Stigall, to 50505 today. Get your free gold and silver investment guide and take that first step. Again, that's Stigall, Stigall. Text it to 50505 and get your free guide from the good people at Preserve Gold. I just posted it this morning on X, just as I sat and I kind of considered it. 9/11 masterminds were just spared the death penalty. Russia and China fly and sail just off our shores. Don't forget the Chinese spy balloon. Iran threatening. Hamas and Hezbollah murdering Israelis. Russia moves on Ukraine. Our border is wide open, killing our people with drugs, raping and murdering our women. Kamala Harris is directly tied to it all. And yet she gets to put on concerts and deliver canned speeches in phony accents. Frankly, if Trump didn't force discussion about this woman and who she really is, there'd be no discussion of who she really is at all. She deserves both barrels. We know what she's doing, and it has to be said. She's hiding. She's hiding, and they're trying to gloss over her resume of failure. They're trying to pretend she's not responsible and tied to this husk and their destruction and their failure by giving her canned speeches and concerts with celebrities and hoping they can ride out the next 3 months without answering a single question. So if we lose, we go down swinging and we tell the truth about who she is, what she's doing. It has to be said. She is a fraud. She is a coward. She is a puppet installed. And now she's asking to be commander-in-chief. That's a death wish for this country. It's a death wish for the world. This woman can't be commander-in-chief. She is the least qualified of any public official that maybe we've ever seen. It's a dangerous world, getting more dangerous every day. And Donald Trump, for whatever you think of him, was an outstanding commander-in-chief. He commanded respect and fear across this globe. People stood down, held their fire, and thought twice when Donald Trump was in office. Things were economically better, things were stable and more secure. It's demonstrably, provably so. She and this pretend president have made it demonstrably worse and more unstable. It's provably so. I'm sorry, I can't sit around and join in the hand-wringing because Donald Trump, again, let me just remind you again of what her own voters. Now, again, I am not suggesting that the Trump campaign doesn't have to do their part and spend money to define who she is. They do. They've got to open the floodgates and spend all the money they've got. I've talked to the chairman about it. I've talked to the RNC about it. Are they spending every nickel they earn in trying to frame this woman to the American public? I hope so. Because let's remember, her own supporters cannot tell you what she's accomplished. Let me go back to this Jesse Waters montage of Kamala Harris supporters answering the question, what's she done? Why do you support her? Why is she so accomplished? And listen to this.
Attorney General in California, and she was the senator from California. I really don't know much of what she did.
I'm not sure I know enough about her accomplishments to answer that question.
The way that she carries herself.
She was Attorney General of her state. She moved up to becoming the Vice President of the United States. So she has definitely made her stamp in history of being the first African-American female Vice President, and soon to be first Vice President as a woman of color.
Okay. This country wants substance and solutions, not sugary identity politics.
Well, that's right. And I guess you have to ask yourself, we all have to ask ourselves, is this 2008 all over again or not? I told you yesterday, I know, because I have it too. I said to a friend of mine yesterday, this feels exactly like 2008. If you were around for that That election, I'll never forget it for a host of reasons. That was the Sarah Palin election. That was, the Greek columns. That was the reverb on the microphone. That was the first outdoor. The reason Donald Trump is so feared by people on the left is no one has ever been able to achieve what Barack Obama once achieved. With the columns and the packed arenas, that no one had ever seen that in politics before until Obama. I was there. I saw it, and everybody was dazzled by it. We all knew what a destructive Marxist he really was and the people that informed his worldview, but the American public didn't care. They were too hypnotized by the Greek columns and the full arenas and the history, and they didn't want to be bigots, and so they voted for the first black president so that they could all prove how not racist the country was. And he ended up being the most divisive, race-based president we've ever had, sadly. And this Marxist divisive ideology continues. This is the third term of it that we're living right now, and he wants a fourth term of it. Enter Cacklebritches, dutifully carrying the water of the Marxist tradition. Again, being glossed over with big, soaring speeches. I mean, listen to this. I'm sorry, I typically wouldn't play her, but this is Kamala Harris last night responding to Donald Trump, questioning who she is on any given day. Indian, black, I don't know. Here's how Kamala Harris and the speech writers decided to frame this last night.
Have you...
This afternoon, Donald Trump spoke at the annual meeting of the National Association of Black Journalists. And it was the same old show. The divisiveness and the disrespect. And let me just say, the American people deserve better. The American people deserve better. The American people deserve a leader who tells the truth, a leader who does not respond with hostility and anger when confronted with the facts. We deserve a leader who understands that our differences do not divide us. They are an essential source of our strength.
Do you hear it? Do you hear it? It is exactly Barack Obama. That's enough. I don't need it. That it's Obama. Our differences are our strength. They pit our differences against one another at every chance they get. Our nation deserves not divisiveness and not disrespect, not anger and hostility to direct questions based in fact. That's who she is. Has she taken one single tough question? How has she acted when she's been questioned? You haven't been to the border. Well, I haven't been to Europe. I don't know what you're getting at. Or the husk saying, you want to take on the government, you're going to need a fighter jet. These people aren't divisive. You see what they do? This is Barack Obama. They are trying to put lipstick, rhetorical lipstick, on this craven, Marxist, divisive pig. That's what they're doing. You see it. I see it. I believe most Americans see it. She is not going to succeed at this the way Barack Obama succeeded. And I think a lot of us tend to believe, well, they did it before. They're going to figure out how to do it again. I can't promise. I don't know. I'm not guaranteeing you anything. I don't predict. But what I am telling you is I don't think the American people are going to swallow this woman and her phony act the way Barack Obama was swallowed. She has a record, and it's a bad one. Democrats know who she is, and that's why they rejected her first over Michael freaking Bloomberg. Do you know that? Do you remember that? Michael Bloomberg didn't drop out of the Democrat primary before she did. She was first to drop out. No one in Democrat politics wanted this woman as their candidate. No one. They knew who she was back then. 3.5 years later, as our, quote, vice president, now we really know who she is. We've seen the empty, wandering answers. We've heard the cackling. And now they give her pre-written speeches, and she gets to come out with soaring rhetoric as though she's above it all, and she's the great uniter, and she's the great healer. And our country, we need a leader who is respectful and decent and answers questions. She does none of that. She is none of those things. The brilliant Victor Davis Hanson, a selected Kamala Harris, will become the only presidential nominee of the two parties in the modern era who has never once entered, nevertheless won, a single primary. And it's hard to think of a single statement or position that Kamala Harris has not suddenly disowned or now rejected. It is near miraculous how for 3.5 years Kamala Harris was the Biden administration's megaphone for its hard left craziness. She was the go-to emissary to the radical Democrat base. Yet now she seems to be copying Trump on secure borders, legal-only immigration, support for law enforcement, and fracking. Still, when the Kamala hysteria subsides, Harris may well suffer the fate of Michael Dukakis, as James Pearson recently noted. Here's a little history for you kids. After the giddiness of the July 1988 Democrat convention, the Democrat nominee Michael Dukakis was leading George H.W. Bush in the Gallup poll by 17 points. Yet, he was crushed by George H.W. Bush in November by almost 8 points. How did that happen? Why did that happen? Bush's Politico, Lee Atwater, in a series of brutal but accurate ads, accurately redefined Dukakis, and a well-spoken official as an unapologetic Massachusetts far-left liberal. They redefined him, writes Victor Davis Hanson. He's soaring high after the convention, the sugar rush, and then H.W. Bush and Lee Atwater described who he was to the people through a series of ads. The 1988 election, continues Victor Davis Hanson in his piece, was the last time Republicans won 51% of the presidential vote. Apparently, the Republican Party grandees decided never again to lower themselves to the Atwater level, and so they've gone on to lose, nobly, 7 of the last 8 popular votes. One of the most demagogic Harrisisms was her 2020 claim that the pseudo-martyr Jussie Smollett was in fact a victim of American racism and homophobia. She gushed, "Jussie Smollett is one of the kindest, most gentle human beings I know. I'm praying for his quick recovery. This was an attempted modern-day lynching. No one should have to fear for their life because of their sexuality or color of their skin. We must confront this hate." Do you remember she said that? Victor Davis Hanson is correct to bring it up and remind us. That's what she said about that fraud who was convicted of defrauding the public and the police. He continues, "The left, until late June, used to refer to her as our border czar, and indeed, she insisted the non-existent border was secure, even as her own administration unapologetically welcomed an influx of tens of millions of illegal aliens. In her role, Harris envisioned dismantling ICE, opposed a wall, didn't consider illegal entry into the United States a crime. Americans were talked down to by Harris and told not to say illegal alien as she ritually introduced herself with her pronouns she and her. Harris was an early vocal supporter of the Green New Deal that would have bankrupted the middle class. The word cop, Harris, also sermonized us not to utter the phrase radical Islamic terrorism, as if to say the 9/11 killers were not radical, were not Islamic, and were not terrorists. Well, they were just spared the death penalty yesterday, I remind you. Back to the piece. Just this week at the Olympics, when the Israeli national anthem was played, radical pro-Hamas crowds waved their Palestinian flags while wildly saluting and chanting Heil Hitler. In the recent pre-July 21st world of Kamala Harris, there should be no private health care, but certainly free government coverage for illegal aliens. If you currently legally own a supposed assault weapon, the government has a right nonetheless to force mandated you sell it to them. For Harris, a country $36 trillion in debt with $1.2 trillion in interest payments per year in its 7th decade of affirmative action, ever-increasing DEI mandates and virtual quotas, and over $20 trillion spent on Great Society poverty programs, should nevertheless go ahead with racial reparations, a policy even Californians reject. All abortions are to be permitted on demand up to the moment of birth. We are not told by Harris the method of terminating the baby in passage through the birth canal. Police should be defunded. Thousands of imprisoned criminals released. Harris vocally supports California's disastrous de facto legalization of shoplifting and misdemeanor theft of items less than $950. She sought to raise bail funds for the 2020 rioters, many of them arrested for street violence, assault, and looting. In her most famous demagoguery, her CBS interview with Stephen Colbert, when she boasted that the ongoing 2020 protests, quite violent despite her fact-checkers' efforts to contextualize Harris's vitriol, would not cease. Direct quote from Harris, "They're not going to stop. This is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop, and everyone beware because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. They're not going to let up, and they should not, and we should not," unquote. Kamala Harris's own words about the George Floyd riots. Note how Harris called the Antifa BLM orchestrated violence a movement, writes Victor Davis Hanson. Let me say that again. Note how Harris called the Antifa BLM orchestrated violence a movement. Note her threats that the turmoil would not stop and should not stop, noting her warning, beware. Note how she shamelessly linked the left-wing protests to the 2020 election day, emphasizing their assumed political utility. In 2020, the left found old Joe Biden from Scranton a useful moderate and unifying veneer for a hardcore Obama third-term agenda, thanks to Biden's long Senate career and his Delaware pseudo-working man shtick. But Harris was first a Bay Area leftist, second, a California hardcore progressive, and third, a failed 2020 primary candidate who tried to vie with Bernie Sanders for the Democrat socialist base on the assumption she had a harder left record in the Senate than Sanders. So the 2024 Harris campaign may again emulate the 2020 formula of keeping the gaffe-prone, cognitively challenged candidate in the basement. Like Joe Biden, Harris's deer-in-the-headlight moment. They're not sporadic, they are characteristic. And so the only remedy is as much seclusion from the public as possible. And her handlers, as is the case for Biden, may again count on the 2020 revolutionary changes in state ballot laws to ensure that nearly 70% of voters don't cast ballots on Election Day. But in 2024, they will not be able again to veneer the hardcore left-wing Harris and repackage her as a middle-class centrist. There was never any such thing as good old moderate Kamala from Berkeley. That's the brilliant Victor Davis Hanson. He's right. They're going to try to hide her. They're going to try to make her look moderate and make us all forget how radical she is. And they're going to try to exploit an election system that they have completely hijacked and reimagined, in which, as Victor says, 70% of us are going to vote before Election Day through the mail. So that's the scene. Victor, as always, brilliantly quantifies it. At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold sacred, and that's free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish, allowing ideas to flourish, debates to ignite, and progress to be made. Without it, our pursuit of liberty, our ability to challenge, or our capacity to innovate, it would be really constrained. Now, in today's digital age, the very platform that should democratize information is being allowed to narrow the spectrum of ideas we're exposed to. Really important discussions about our wealth, our rights, our future, systemically silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many feeling voiceless in conversations that are really crucial to your financial independence and your security. And that's where the company Wealth Protection Research steps in. They're armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. I want to be clear about that. They're defenders of free speech. They're committed to giving a voice to the silenced. In an era where dialogues about retirement, investments, economic freedoms are increasingly censored, Wealth Protection Research is focused on ensuring that diverse, controversial, and revolutionary ideas also get a platform. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts through leaders and thought leaders, trailblazers, all who've been pushed to the margins by mainstream media and tech platforms like Facebook and Google. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, offering fresh, often contrarian perspectives on protecting and growing your wealth, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of this coming election. By spotlighting these thinkers, people like Jim Rickards or Porter Stansberry, Wealth Protection Research is not just sharing financial advice, they're fostering a movement toward a more open, informed, and free society. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 election wealth protection report, and it's a completely free report. It highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election, and it also contains ideas the mainstream media doesn't want to touch. Listeners to this show can get this whole thing completely free if you text the word ideas to 76626. Just text ideas to 76626, and if you do that today, you're also going to get a free gold investment kit from Wealth Protection Research. And the sponsor of that is Augusta Precious Metals, by the way, and we appreciate that. So just text ideas to 76626. If you're like me and you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, act now. Text ideas to 76626. Claim your free copy of this 2024 election report. You know, it's time to widen the scope of what we're told. You know we believe that here. Here are the ideas that establishment folks can't handle and don't think you can handle. Take control of your own financial destiny. Text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy. The battle for free speech is the battle for our future, and Wealth Protection Research ensures that the ideas capable of shaping our financial well-being are available to all of us who want to hear them. So don't wait. Grab your free report right now. Text ideas to 76626 and claim your free copy. Let me turn to little Joshy Shapiro. I'm sorry, Genocide Josh, as he's known in progressive circles. So Cackle Bridges announced she's going to debut her vice presidential pick in Philadelphia on Tuesday. And this will kick off a barnstorming tour of many, many swing states. Pennsylvania, the first stop, and then on, I think, to North Carolina, and then Arizona and Nevada, and blah, 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 blah. And they're going to kick off in Philadelphia with her Veep pick. And this has led many to believe that, in fact, she has zeroed in now on little Josh, the diminutive pocket-sized governor of Pennsylvania, who many progressives are lovingly calling Genocide Josh. But not so fast, folks. If you think to yourself, oh, no, not only are they running a showbiz campaign with cackle britches, they're going to pick up a showbiz governor who does showbiz better than any Democrat. He has sold such a bill of goods about being this moderate. They talk about how he racked up such an impressive victory. Oh, there's never been a more moderate, perfect, sterling Democrat candidate than little Josh. They've said it over and over and over. Odds-on favorite to be picked. He may well be, folks. He may well be. But, and there is a big but, people are starting to zero in on just exactly who he is and what problems he might cause. And I say again, if you missed yesterday, back on the 24th, just a mere few days ago, a group called Dropout for the People. I kid you not. Their handle on X is Say No to Genocide Josh. And their press release was, while Vice President Harris will assuredly be the nominee, she now needs to gain the trust of working class, progressive, and young voters. She can start by committing to support an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza and an end to the illegal occupation of Palestine. Israel is conducting an ongoing genocide, even though 12 children were just killed this week. But anyway, that's their position. Israel is committing an ongoing genocide, and we must do everything in our power to stop them. Harris must also commit to following American and international law by ending illegal weapons sales to Israel, as well as increasing the amount of foreign aid going into Gaza and the West Bank. The left must unite over the next 4 weeks to ensure that America doesn't fall down the path of fascism, authoritarianism, and runaway corporatism. It is in Harris and the Democrats' best interest to listen to their base and ensure that both their new vice president pick and their platform support the majority of Americans and Democrats who want social and economic justice for workers and an immediate ceasefire in Palestine. This is a long letter. They say this: we need a VP nominee who has. We don't need a VP nominee who has failed to support the rights of workers and immigrants, who has diverted public education funding toward for-profit entities, or restricted access to reproductive or gender-affirming care. And on and on it goes. Now, I also pointed out that Panties in a Bunch, the very, very left-wing elder statesman at the Philadelphia Inquirer, I don't think they can afford to pay anybody anymore except him, and I think he works there for free just so that he'll continue to feel published or whatever. Panties in a Bunch wrote a piece a few days ago, said why the left's knives are out for Shapiro, and he laid it out. He said all those things that the Say No to Genocide Josh people said, but one other thing he tucked in there piqued my interest. And it was this one. It was that little Joshy has a problem with how he handled a sexual harassment case in his office. Uh-oh. So the woman, the girl power ticket, would pick a guy that many people believe has a problem, a blemish on the sterling and perfect little Joshy's resume, perhaps. The Shapiro administration, writes Panties in a Bunch, agreed to pay $295,000 to a former female aide who accused a longtime political associate, Mike Vereb, his legislative secretary, a cabinet post, of making unwanted sexual advances and frequent lewd talk. Female lawmakers in both parties have criticized the administration, which cites a non-disclosure agreement for not talking about the case for an alleged lack of transparency on the story. The Democrat candidate for state treasurer, Erin McClelland, sent shockwaves through the Veep stakes when she tweeted that she wanted a VP who doesn't sweep sexual harassment under the rug. This is the exact kind of allegation that can prove toxic in an intra-party squabble among Democrats. Oh, my. Well, this also came up last night on CNN. Gretchen Carlson. Do you remember her? Gretchen used to host Fox and Friends in the morning with Ducey and Kilmeade, and then she sued Roger Ailes and won a boatload of money, and then she went over to, I think, Miss America. She used to be a pageant queen, and she went over to Miss America and ruined that by getting rid of the swimsuit competition. Made a bunch of people mad. You remember her? She's just been a bomb thrower everywhere she goes. So she's collected gazillions of dollars from Fox and Roger Ailes in a sexual harassment settlement. All right, fine, good for her. She wrecked Miss America, and then she's basically vanished. Well, now she's back, and she shows up on CNN, and she brings this very same line of attack against genocide pocket-sized Josh. Listen.
It would be electric.
How do you see that? Well, there's a little-known story about Governor Shapiro that's starting to gain some traction, and it happened last year when his top aide was accused of sexual harassment of a subordinate. And there were criticisms about the governor's response to this and the fact that it took so long for him to actually say much about it, or, in fact, for this aide to resign. Meantime, the woman, of course, was pushed out. And I think in 2024, I would know something about this after suing Fox News and Roger Ailes for harassment back in 2016. This doesn't cut it in 2024 anymore. You can't put these stories under the carpet and expect to not have people talk about them. So Governor Shapiro, in my mind, should let that woman out of her non-disclosure agreement tonight, tomorrow, and possibly put out a press statement about how he maybe should have handled it slightly different. He's never actually said anything about the aide as far as any kind of criticism. And when you're running with a female candidate at the top of the ticket and you are looking for the female votes, this story could become a much bigger problem, speaking of vetting. And he wasn't...
Uh-oh. Gretchen Carlson cometh. the spokeswoman for sexual harassment from coast to coast, Gretchen Carlson, saying, they may have a real problem with little Josh, Genocide Josh. He has not answered for this. And you heard, again, as Panties in a Bunch said, that the Democrat candidate for state treasurer in Pennsylvania, Erin McClelland, tweeted, she wants a VP who doesn't sweep sexual harassment under the rug. Oh, my, ladies and gentlemen. So the perfect blemish-free little Josh Shapiro, who has been humming Hail to the Chief since he was in his mother's womb, who I'm told he is beyond political perfection. No one has ever won bigger and more and been more popular and is as flawless and as bulletproof and sends shockwaves and fear through Republicans like little Josh. No one is more perfect than Josh Shapiro. But wait. It turns out progressives are calling him Genocide Josh, and women are starting to ask, hey, why did you pay $300,000 to make a woman hush and go away? You know what he did? You know what it was? It was hush money, folks. It's the little Josh Shapiro hush money cover-up. Right? I mean, that's what they called Trump's non-disclosure agreement. Hush money. It's the hush money scandal. Well, little Josh took government funds and paid hush money to an aide to make her go away and make her sign a hush money deal. Remember, non-disclosure agreements are signed all the time, and I think if they pick little Josh to be Cacklebritch's running mate, that's one of the first things the Trump campaign can now officially say. Well, it's funny you bring up hush money and non-disclosure agreements because your vice presidential candidate engaged in one. Care to speak more about that, little Josh? Not to mention, he supports Israel. Hey, Mike Lindell and My Pillow, you know the name. 20 years, they've been singing the jingle on Fox News and on the radio. And it's no secret that Mike and the company have come under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of attack. Big box stores have tossed My Pillow from their stores. Even the online retailers now won't sell My Pillow products. And who does that hurt, really? I mean, yeah, I understand. They don't like Mike's position on the election or whatever, but Mike employs hundreds of Americans, hundreds of Minnesotans who make great products. If you know the My Pillow products, I sleep on them every night. So does my dog Dean. They're great products, and he wants to sell them to you at unbelievable prices, by the way, but they're backed with a 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee, and most importantly, again, they're made here in the United States. So it's not something he's asking me to say. It's just something I'd like to remind you of, that a guy who has an opinion, who happens to own a very successful American company and employs a lot of Americans who make great American products that a lot of you have bought and owned or are looking to buy and own. I just want you to know that while he takes it on the chin a lot out there for having the positions he has, he wants to keep his employees busy. He wants to keep the company moving along, and so he's passing on huge, huge savings to you in what he's calling the $25 extravaganza. Getting the word out, I want to invite you to check out this $25 extravaganza today. 2 multi-pack My Pillows, just $25. My Pillow sandals, just $25. I'm looking at the list of these deals right now. 6-pack towel set, just $25. 6-pack of towels, $25. And the My Pillows with the new Giza fabric, just $25. And here's the thing, if you order any or all of this stuff, if you exceed $75 with your order, he ships it to you for free. So free shipping on anything $75 or over. And look, with all those deals and so many more at just $25 a piece, I think you'll be very, very pleased with not just the quality, but the price point and the free shipping. It's MyPillow.com. I hope you'll use the promo code ChrisPodcast. MyPillow.com, ChrisPodcast, to take advantage of all these savings. Get that free shipping over $75. Or call 800-932-5056. Great operators, American-based operators. You can call and say, hey, I'm with you. And hang in there. 800-932-5056. Don't forget the promo code ChrisPodcast. It lets them know you listen, which I appreciate, but more importantly, get you that deal. MyPillow.com or 800-932-5056. Promo code ChrisPodcast. I don't know if you are following the Olympics. I decided I don't follow it anyway, to be perfectly candid with you, but I'm certainly not interested in watching it now that they decided to put on their little transgender mockery of the Last Supper. But apparently, in women's boxing, have you seen this? Angela Carini had her Olympic dreams shattered by someone called Imane Khalif, who is a male boxer pretending to be a woman. It is suspected that he broke her nose. The Olympics may have just ended the men pretending to be women and competing against real women disgrace. I think the Olympics may have done it. On a global stage, they just showed a man, a biological man, hit a real woman in the hard so hard, hit her in the face so hard, he broke her nose, pretending to be a woman. The Olympics has sanctioned men beating up women. And I want you, Kamala Harris voting women, you coward, disgrace, Kamala Harris voting women, I want you to explain why you're comfortable with your politics allowing grown men to hit women in the face. You Kamala Harris feminist voting frauds, you. Yeah, that's right. I'm talking very specifically to you women. I want every one of you phony, fake feminist women supporting this phony, fake feminist, fake candidate Kamala Harris. I want every one of you fake women. That's right. You're a fake woman with unserious, unreal, unsubstantive political thinking. You have nothing but idiotic, unserious emotion that rules you. And you're so absolutely vapid. You don't even see that men are being allowed to beat the hell out of you in your own sports. Men are being allowed to enter your locker rooms. Men are taking positions and places away from your daughters in competitive sports. And you Kamala Harris feminist frauds, you women who vote for Kamala Harris, what the hell are you doing about it? How do you stand by and allow for this? And here's the picture of this woman whose career has probably been ended. Angela Carini, after lasting just 46 seconds against a man, a biological man pretending to be a woman, crying post-boxing match, says, I have never been hit so hard in all my life. This will be up to the IOC to judge. Democrats, you Democrat women, you Kamala Harris voting women, sanction men kicking the crap out of you. And I want to know what kind of suicide pact you have signed with the Democrat Party that this makes sense to you. What pit of hell nonsense is it that you Democrat women allow men to pretend to be women to kick the crap out of you? And you have the audacity to talk to me you're voting abortion? Are you serious? Oh, abortion means so much to me. Abortion is so important to me. Are you having one? Well, no, but it's important to me that my daughter or my sister or my niece or my neighbor's daughter and sister and niece, it's so important to me that women have body autonomy. Bullcrap. You're a liar. You don't care about bodily autonomy. You're perfectly willing to let grown men come in and spy on your little girls and take their positions in sports teams and kick the crap out of them in competitive sports. You don't care about women. You don't care about bodily autonomy. You don't care about protecting women's rights. You're a fraud. And every last Democrat voting woman in this country ought to be made to explain why grown men are being allowed to kick the crap out of women in competitive sports. Why is it being allowed to happen? You phonies. You Democrat fraud women, you. I want to hear every last one of you try to explain it. Go ahead and try. Phone lines open. Email me anytime you'd like if you're woman enough to step up and talk about it. Since you seem to like men kicking the crap out of you, why don't you come in and let me try and swing a couple of swings at you, lady? You big, brave Democrat voter, you, standing up for bodily autonomy for women. Oh, are you? So you're fighting so she can abort a child, but it stops when a man beats the hell out of her, does it? Interesting. Really interesting juxtaposition, you Democrat women, you. Liberal women, absolutely the worst. Absolutely the worst. Not a thinking brain in one of them. Just ruled by emotion and never thinking it through. Not one of them.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.